Samsung's been quite competitive recently. At launch, the A50 felt like a phone they'd usually price at 25,000 or 30, but it came in at 20,000. So is this a great deal? What are the pros and cons of this phone? Let's find out in today's video. Hey guys, Ash here from C4 eTech and let's get started. If you do end up liking this video, please don't forget to turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon. So before we start, an apology, I was wrong in my unboxing when I said this phone has IP68 certification. It doesn't. I thought I read it on the spec sheet that Samsung sent me, but I was wrong. So sorry guys, I'll do my best to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. Now that's out of the way, let's start with the build. Now this is not glass, it's still plastic, but the rainbow pattern to the back, it seems quite different. A little more color in a segment where Samsung's usually been bland and mundane. The A50 is also ergonomic thanks to those curved edges, and it is lighter than you'd expect it to be. That's thanks in large to the materials used. But plastic is plastic, so it scratches and picks up fingerprints quite easily. Now I do wish Samsung had some metal or glass here, but the freshness of the build and the fact that Samsung's finally offering something different here while maintaining the headphone jack and microSD support and also adding Type-C, I am gonna call this a pro. Talking about pros, let's talk display. This is an Infinity U panel. That's Samsung's peak for a 6.4-inch AMOLED display with a water drop style notch. The resolution is Full HD+, so it looks quite sharp. The colors, as with all Samsung AMOLEDs, are punchy, the viewing angles are good, the panel also gets quite bright. It is worth mentioning that while the bezels are quite small, there is a fairly prominent chin at the bottom, but despite that, the screen-to-body ratio still remains high. So from a looks and display perspective, Samsung seems to have done quite well. So what about the internals? Now underneath the hood, this phone is powered by the Exynos 9610 chip. Now 9610, that's the just 200 lesser than the 9810, right? The one on the Galaxy S9. So does this mean it's a similar chip? Well, not really. The 9 series chips like the ones on the Galaxy S9 or the S10, now they are flagship chips. But the Exynos 9610 is not a 9 series chip, it is a 7 series chip. Wait, what? Yep, you heard me right. The Exynos 9610 is a 7 series chip. Let that sink in for a minute. Now does that mean the 9610 sucks? Nope, not at all. There are 4 A73 and 4 A53 cores inside, and this happens to be built on the 10nm process. So the performance here, I would rate it somewhere above the Snapdragon 660 but below the 710, around the 675 probably. The benchmarks reflect the same. From a day-to-day usage perspective, the A50 with its One UI built on Android 9 Pie felt fast and fluid. From a gaming perspective, Exynos chips usually offer lower GPU performance than comparable Qualcomm chips, and theoretically it might be so, but with practical usage, the 9610 here had no issues pushing pixels. PUBG on high settings ran quite smoothly. A few frame drops, yes, but they were very rare. For the most part, I had a good gaming experience here on the Galaxy A30. Samsung offers 4 or 6 gigs of RAM to go along with 64 gigs of storage, and there is a 4000 mAh battery backing all this up. Now the battery life, I would call it above average. Now it's not like say with the Poco F1 where I could stretch it to almost 2 days if I was a little frugal with my usage. It's not like I was getting stressed out about the battery either. I used this phone for almost a week as my primary, and almost every day with moderate usage I was easily able to get to the end of the day. The battery life, like I said, is above average. Unless you really push the A50, you will more often than not end up getting a full day on a single charge. Now, if you do run out of charge, there is an included 15-watt charger that should help you get back up relatively fast. So going back to the user experience, One UI here means that this is the fastest Samsung UX in a while. The A50 is quite snappy. The in-display fingerprint scanner, it's considerably slower than what we find on a V15 Pro or even a V11 Pro. The accuracy is also all over the place. The face unlock is finicky too. It's only with the A50 that I've had to use pattern unlocks so many times now. That's definitely a disappointment. Talking about disappointments, haptic feedback is still disabled despite the sensor being included. Now, if you can look past it, the experience is fine, gestures worked well, apps scaled without any issues, multitasking was fine too. Now, let's move on to optics. We have a triple camera setup to the back, a 25 megapixel primary with the f1.7 lens, a 5 megapixel depth sensor, and an 8 megapixel ultra wide. There's also a 25 megapixel camera to the front. Now here's the thing, both those 25 megapixel sensors to the front and back, there is a kind of sort of conditions apply here to it. You need to switch to 4:3H to get 25 megapixel shots. And if you need HDR or live focus, you can only shoot 12 megapixels. Now forget live focus, HDR is quite important here since the dynamic range isn't great. So for all intents and purposes, we are dealing with 12 megapixels of data here. Now as a 12 megapixel shooter, it is excellent. Images are well detailed with HDR on, the dynamic range is acceptable. The saturation is a little toned up, but that's because Samsung is intentionally doing it with the scene optimizer. So that's not a negative at all. The f1.7 lens means the bokeh is quite nice too. The 8 megapixel sensor has a fixed focus ultra wide and it loses out on detail, but it is still wide angle, so fresh perspectives and all. I'm kind of happy that we are able to cram in so much into an image. I do wish it wasn't fixed focus, and I do wish that the noticeable color difference between images shot by both sensors, that didn't exist because I personally found that really annoying. The 5 megapixel depth sensor helps with live focus shots like this, and it worked as well as you'd expect, from a phone like this. The Pro mode on non-flagship Samsung phones is a joke, so there is, not really a Pro mode here. For video, the A50 can do only 1080p 30, which is disappointing, but it can shoot with both the regular and wide angle, and there is EIS on both. So the footage looks nice and stable. Now for selfies, HDR isn't as important as it is for the rear camera, but live focus is more important here, so I ended up shooting mostly at 12 megapixels, and the resulting images, they turned out quite well. Ample detail, edge detection on portrait mode shots was okay too. So now we get to the conclusion. The A50 is priced at 20,000 rupees. So what are the alternatives at this price? The Poco F1 is one, that's the king of the segment, and it's got much stronger internals, offers better battery life, and has superior optics. Now the Oppo K1 is a few thousand rupees cheaper, it's got a weaker chip, comparable optics, probably, because I've not tested them side by side, but I think they should be comparable. So is the A50 a good phone? Yes. It does seem that way. The internals are solid, the performance is good, the optics are acceptable, and the sub 20k price tag is great, if you want a Samsung phone. But, it is when you want a Samsung phone that the A50 seems to be a good deal. Because if you don't mind the brand you're buying, the Poco F1 is a better alternative. Or you can even save a few thousand rupees and buy the Oppo K1 or the extremely underrated Honor Play. So there you go, my thoughts on the A50. Do you agree with what I've had to say in this video? So what do you think about the Galaxy A50? Let me know in the comments below. Now if you've made it this far, come on, you liked the video, right? Go ahead, leave a thumbs up, subscribe. If you are already a subscriber, turn on notifications, hit that bell icon. And have you seen either of these videos? I think they should be interesting, so go ahead, check them out. And I guess it's now time I bid you adieu. Thanks a lot for watching. Till next time, this is Ash here from C4E Tech, calling it like I see it. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.